On a cold winter day in the year 2022, a teenager thought it would be fun to surprise his friends with a new controversial toy that he had just bought from the internet. One that most parents would not be thrilled hearing about their child playing with. The young teen, right after his third class, thought it was ample time to whip out his new toy and show his friends how it worked. It was a Ouija board, also known as a spirit board, a device used to communicate with the deceased or any other spiritual entities willing to play a quick game. Some of them were skeptical, but all decided to play along and take turns using this mysterious board. Their small group grabbed the attention of some other students. All participating were between the ages of 17 to as young as 13. They marveled in disbelief as they saw this board move, almost as if it was being controlled by something else. One by one, as they continued asking questions, they started to feel weak. Some even vomiting after fighting off their nausea. Just a few minutes later, a teacher walking down the hallway noticed them, but to her horror, all 11 children were collapsed on the ground. The teacher, unaware of why these students were in pain, frantically dialed 911. The school administration began to investigate, and the first thing that they found was the Ouija board. This was just another example added to the list of why you should not mess with things that are supernatural. Many of you are already calling this a sham, saying that this story did not happen, but it actually did. To be transparent, I did embellish it a little for the purpose of presentation, but the entire premise remains true. So that begs the question, how did this happen? Did a Ouija board put kids in the hospital? Well, that's what some people would like you to believe. But when we dig a little bit deeper, we find that all 11 kids had food poisoning. Yep, they all drank out of the same dirty cup, giving every last one of them the same nasty stomach bug. At first, this story seems incredible and scary, and something that you wouldn't like to believe, but may be true. Well, I'm here to tell you that it isn't. There is no good reason to lose sleep over the Ouija board, and I'm gonna explain why. Hello and welcome to Supernatural, the channel that likes to show you how truly natural the world around us really is. While growing up, I was pressured to believe in ghosts and demons, being told that they were continually around me, waiting to pounce and take advantage of any weakness that I may show. I struggled to sleep at night, and I often wondered when they would finally get me. One day, I asked myself a question that forever changed my view of the miraculous. If these ghosts are continually around, why haven't I seen at least some of that evidence for myself? This has sent me on a mission to put paranormal activity to the test. I want to see what the supernatural has to offer. Is it going to bring me spiritual insight, a deeper understanding of the afterlife, or just an early grave? Can the supernatural kill you? If it can, then my goal is to be murdered by it. If there are any supernatural experiences to have, I'm going to have them. And unfortunately, I'm going to share them with you. Now come along as we dive deep into the supernaturality of the Ouija board. The Ouija board was an invention patented in 1890 by Charles Kennard. It is a thin flat board with the letters A through Z, numbers 0 through 9, the words yes, no, hello, and goodbye all written on it. The board is often referred to as an oracle, something that is regarded as an infallible authority or guide. The Ouija board would not be complete without its planchette or little board. The planchette is a small triangle-shaped piece of wood or plastic with a hole in the center and 3 small legs that help reduce friction against the board, allowing for easy movement. It is believed that 2 people, when placing their hands on top of the planchette and asking it a question, will be guided to the answer. The small triangle will move almost on its own, and because it is so easy to manipulate, people say that ghosts or other spiritual entities can reach in and guide its users through their hands, or even move the planchette on their own. Some even claim that the board has ancient roots going all the way back to 500 BC, which those selling the board would love for you to believe because it makes it sound really mystic and creepy. Although the evidence to back this up is lacking almost entirely. The board never truly made an appearance until the 19th century. Now, to understand the Ouija board's history, it's important to know about the spiritualism movement that was sweeping the nation at the time, and started with just 2 young sisters. Maggie and Kate Fox were famous in the 1800s for being powerful mediums, people with the ability to see and feel beyond the natural world. Even while they were young, they showed a strong connection to the other side. As teenagers, they would present their friends with their unique talent by calling upon Mr. Splitfoot to answer simple questions such as how many siblings their friend had, or would ask the ghost to repeat after them. Maggie or Kate would then snap their fingers a couple of times, and a faint clicking sound would be heard in response. Shocked, the friends would go to tell of their frightening experience with Mr. Splitfoot and the mysterious Fox sisters. Maggie and Kate had little idea that they were the sparks to ignite the fire of spiritualism. In 1849, the two sisters, now having perfected their craft, decided to turn this ability into a business venture. They showed off their incredible ability to communicate with the deceased to a crowd of almost 400 people. Some thought that the clicking sounds were just the sisters cracking their knuckles, but many others were convinced that they were witnesses to a miracle. Word quickly spread about the girls, and soon enough, many others tried to recreate their fame and success by claiming to also have the power to speak to those who have passed, opening up their own shows that of course you have to pay to see. Because this was all happening amidst the aftermath of the Civil War, there were many who were desperate for a chance to speak with their past loved ones. This created the perfect storm for people to start believing in the supernatural. A quick side note unrelated to the Ouija board, Maggie Fox in 1888, either out of guilt for her actions, spite for her sister, or some other unknown reason, called a crowd of people together and admitted that the communication with the spirits was fake, that the clicking sounds was just her and her sister popping their joints. And she even demonstrated to this crowd how she could recreate the sound that once mystified so many. In her own words, she said, "When I began this deception, I was too young to know right from wrong, and that I've been mainly instrumental in perpetuating the fraud of spiritualism upon a too confiding public many of you already know. It is the greatest sorrow of my life." Just a year after exposing herself and her sister as frauds, she recanted what she had said, claiming that she actually was a spiritual medium, although it is unclear as to why she went back on her previous statement. Despite the sandy foundation that spiritualism was based on, it continued to grow in popularity, inspiring people to attempt communication with the dead. Charles Kennard took notice of this crave for the paranormal. He was an inventor slash salesman slash opportunist who always was looking for the next way to make a quick buck. He initially found some success business-wise with a secret recipe fertilizer, but that only got him so far as he ended up losing his business in an auction due to debt. Yet, not all was lost. Having a connection to E.C. Reich, a woodworker and coffin maker, Kennard had another idea up his sleeve. He had recently heard about a special spirit board that allowed people to communicate with the dead. Hoping that this was his next million-dollar idea, Kennard wasted little time. He had Reich create these boards in his spare time while he would go off and try to persuade potential investors. He was especially convincing to Elijah Bond, a rich lawyer. Elijah was particularly interested in this invention as his sister-in-law, Helen Peters, claimed to already have a special ability to communicate with spirits. Kennard was finally able to establish the Kennard Novelty Company just a day before Halloween. Now having the backing and the boards, there was one last thing to get: a patent. The US Patent Office was extremely skeptical of a talking board that could allow you to communicate with the dead. Kennard made a smart move and turned to Helen, asking her to try to convince them that the board was deserving of a patent. She was successful, and during her presentation, she asked the talking board what people should call it, and the board answered OUIJA. Helen then asked what that meant. The board responded, "Good luck." It's important to note that at the time, Helen literally had a necklace locket with the word Ouija written on it. So where the word really comes from, we're not too sure. After rebranding the talking board to the Ouija board, the Kennard Novelty Company found instant success, selling almost 2,000 boards a week. A short while later, William Fuld, an early investor of the company, grew to be the new CEO after Kennard wanted to cut any potential losses and cashed out, probably what was too early. William Fuld would die in 1927 due to a construction accident in a building that he had earlier claimed the Ouija board instructed him to build. Interesting to note is that William himself had dismissed his belief in the Ouija board. When asked by a reporter if he believed in the Ouija board's mystical power, he said, "I should say not. I am no spiritualist, I am a Presbyterian." Why he had later claimed that the Ouija board was giving him business advice is anyone's guess. The Kennard Novelty Company would eventually sell the rights to the Ouija board to the Parker brothers, which is who you'll find selling the board today. Ever since the board's creation, people have related personal experiences with spirits while using the Ouija board, which begs the question, does the Ouija board work? Simple answer, maybe? Now hear me out. It really depends on what you mean by work. To better explain, let's separate those that believe in mystical power and those that don't into two separate groups: the spiritualists and the skeptics. Spiritualists have their theories about how the board aids in communication. The first one being that because the planchette is easily moved, the spirit is able to literally move the little triangle around on their own. Some spiritualists even warn to never leave a planchette unattended because it is dangerous. This claim begs the question question that if a ghost is able to move anything that slides easily, what is stopping them from just writing you complete sentences with the letter magnets on your fridge? Wouldn't that be a much easier way of communicating instead of just going one letter at a time? If the problem is that you first need to invite the spirit in, then why wouldn't the spirit just instantly leave the table the minute it was invited by the Ouija board and go straight over to your computer and type in its message? If you have enough strength to push a planchette, you have enough strength to push down on a keyboard. Well, let's move on to the second theory. Spiritualists say that spirits aren't controlling the board, they are controlling you. They're telling you and your friend to move the planchette to the correct letter, number, or phrase. So possession, but in a very subtle way. My issue with this idea is that if a ghost is able to persuade or possess your body to do minute things, why would they take on the insane task of writing each word out letter by letter? If they are already inside of your body, why don't they just manipulate your voice to communicate what they're trying to say? Or control your arms to write down their message? The third spiritualist theory has to do with energy. Our bodies are made of energy and connected to the universe, so naturally it is this good energy that plants the answer in our mind and suggests the movements. I love that the more spiritual based someone tries to make something, the crazier their assumptions and their theories become. The first assumption that's strange is if your body was made of energy that couldn't be found, how would you even know about it then? The second assumption is that this energy has an ability to perceive questions, understand written language, and control your movements, or at least suggest movements to you. And third, this assumes that the energy is smarter than you because it's worth heeding its advice. Then come the skeptics' theories. The Ouija board is a game for two, and because this planchette slides easily, it is hard to tell exactly where the movement is coming from. Well, you know you aren't moving it, and as a skeptic, you know a ghost isn't moving it, so it must be your friend that is the culprit. The issue with this is that it assumes that every single person who has had a mysterious encounter with the board was being pranked or pranking someone else. And the fact that thousands of people have claimed to have an experience with the board may explain a lot of cases, but probably not all. Skeptic theory number 2, the Ideomotor Effect. When someone moves something unconsciously. To best explain this theory, I'd like to share a story. Sydney Fells, a professor from the University of British Columbia, hosted a Halloween party for his students. As part of the decorations, he laid out a Ouija board and didn't think much else of it. A little while later, he finds multiple people gathered around it, shocked that the board actually seemed like it was working. People's hands were being guided by the planchette to a yes or no to the questions they were asking. Sydney couldn't stop thinking about this and mentioned it to his coworker Ron Rensink about how the planchette really seemed to give answers to the students. After some discussion, they decided to conduct a study. They asked a handful of students 80 true or false questions, but instead of just having the students answer by clicking yes or no on a computer, they also had them answer using a planchette. Each student participant was placed with someone who was pretending to also be a participant. Both students, the one being tested and the phony, would sit down and place their hands on the planchette. Then, the student being tested was blindfolded and asked the question as the pretender would lift their hands off of the planchette, leaving the participant unknowingly to be the sole contributor to any motion. They were specifically told, your task is to do nothing but wait until the planchette starts moving. When the planchette moves, just follow the movement. Please do not try to initiate the movement or modify their trajectory. After each question, they would be asked to nod their head if they were responsible for the movement, and if they knew the answer or if it was a guess. The professors found that when the students didn't know the answer to the question, they were 65% likely to guess correctly, as opposed to just 50% when guessing without the planchette. Their theory is that the body can access subconscious information that the conscious brain cannot. Although this study had a very small sample size and reused some of the old questions, which means students were answering for the second time, but on the Ouija board, allowing them some extra time to think about their answer. This makes it hard to know if the Ouija board actually has any ability to access the subconscious mind, so maybe don't lean on the Ouija board to get you through your next exam. But regardless of its ability to actually answer questions, there was a stranger phenomenon going on. The professors wrote, all participants reported that they were only following the movement. They never induced it. When told that they were the only player moving the planchette during the Ouija session, all exhibited some degree of surprise. Indeed, several reported that they suspected the other participant to be a confederate because the planchette was moving too well, and they assumed that her role was to move it intentionally. This shows the ideomotor effect in action. Your brain will think yes, even subconsciously think yes, and your body will react to that. This helps to explain the bizarre cases where your friend swears that the board was answering on its own. In fact, you can sit down at a Ouija board with a friend or alone and feel as though someone else is moving it, when it is really just your extremely intuitive brain doing what it thinks it's supposed to. But I'm not here to debunk the paranormal. I'm here to experience it for myself. Just because the Ideomotor Effect has been proven doesn't disprove that spiritual entities may at times come in and persuade its users through the Ouija board, even if it's extremely unlikely. Yet, if I just chop this all up to nothing, could I really call myself a skeptic? So, for the first time ever, I am buying the one thing my mom told me to never mess with on her own Amazon account. Sorry, Mom. Okay, so I actually have my Ouija board here, and because you're not supposed to be using the Ouija board alone, that's the point of the game, I've invited my sister Ray here. So we're gonna see if we do have a paranormal experience. Ray, before you put your hands on it, I'd like to just demonstrate for you how easily the Ouija board moves. I'm barely touching it with my fingers, and I just want to ask you, like, is that kind of surprising to you? Did you think it was going to be this easy? Do you think it'd be harder to move this around?
It kind of looks like air hockey, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and ask a question. A very simple question, I think, to start out with. Are there any spirits here? I'm not.
You are absolutely moving
I'm following it. So the answer is 1.
You are freaking me out.
I'm not trying to move it on my own. Right, I promise you I'm not going to with you on this. I'm just really trying to see, does this move somewhere? I kind of think it would be cool if it did. It may not, and it may not make sense. Really try and see if you can get an answer.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and try and ask a few more questions, maybe some personal questions.
How old are you?
So it went to a 5. Okay,
Nice.
Let's ask another question here. Ouija board, do you have mystical powers?
Okay.
Let's ask another question. Do you have good intentions?
Well, all my exes said that too, so.
I don't know anyone who would tell us that they had bad intentions. What is your name? I guess you could try and say that's on an A.
What if we went with A and just see if we get anything else?
Okay, A.
A.
G. Shout out to G.
Yep.
E.
What is that?
I. R. Aegir. Honestly, how do you feel right now?
At first, I was like really annoyed, but then I just started trying to follow it wherever it goes instead of just stopping it from moving. And it actually went places.
I'm actually trying to see if something happens. The answers have been very infrequent. It hasn't really made sense. Maybe we just haven't done a good job of inviting a spirit. Some spiritualists say that there are extra rules that should be followed in order to be safe when using the Ouija board. And, well, what better way to see if the Ouija board works than by putting these to the test? One of the first things that I found is Koi Was, a self-professed tarot card reader. He said, do not leave the planchette on the board unattended ever. Are you hungry?
Yeah, I could go for a snack.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go, we'll just take a 5-minute break. It didn't move.
No.
Next rule. Someone else said, do not let the planchette go from A to Z or 1 to 0 or make a figure 8 either forwards or backwards. This is an incantation for a spirit to get into the human realm. This sounds pretty serious. Do you feel any different?
Kinda itchy.
I'm gonna take that as a no. Even WikiHow put in their 2 cents about how to not use the Ouija board. Don't ask for a physical sign that the ghost is there. Please show us a physical sign that you are here. Do you feel anything?
No.
Another rule, always play with respect and be safe. You ugly ghost! You is a You couldn't even move this even if your life depended on it. Oh wait, you're dead.
Do you like to say anything else? You spit on me!
You really would think something would happen at this point. Okay, well, I'm gonna take that as a no answer. There is one more rule that I found that I thought was worth putting to the test. Matt Rose wrote, you are not supposed to ask the Ouija board to predict death or when you die, because it is supposed to cause you to die. Ouija Oracle, how will I die? I totally wasn't expecting anything to happen, but seriously, when I asked this question, I died. So definitely don't ask the Ouija board anything about death or else it will cause you to die. all of the joking aside, I really tried to have a paranormal experience here. I was searching for it and not much came. If the Ouija board is as mystical as people have claimed it to be, you think we would have ran into at least some kind of evidence. Yet everything we have run into seems to have an explanation behind it. The origin of the board, the answers people seem to get, even the alleged illness mentioned in the beginning of the video has only led me to believe that there is nothing paranormal here. After learning this, some of me wishes I could reach out to my younger self and let him know that there is nothing scary about this supernatural board that allows you to communicate with the deceased. So the next time you feel afraid of something that may be paranormal, look it up and dig deeper. You might be surprised to find that there was nothing to be afraid of in the first place. And if that's the case, more power to you. Hey guys, if you made it this far into the video, I want to say thank you so much. I spent so much time on this video. It really is something that's near and dear to my heart, and it means the world that someone like you found interest in actually watching this super long video. If you thought it was interesting, please hit a like, and if you'd like to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. I'm hoping if time allows to post one video a month, and if you know someone who's afraid of things like this, maybe send this video their way. It might actually help. Who knows?